Hi, guys. Welcome back to another podcast, Jakl Den podcast. I am your host and president, Daryl Keith Hendon, a.k.a. the Fairweather Rugby Fan. Joined with me, as always, a man who has his pulse on USA Rugby. If you don't believe me, follow him on social media. That man knows all the ins and outs. Former SMU head coach, former Dallas Harlequin, Rick Collins. Welcome, Rick, as
Yeah,
always.
I'm glad we're back. I'm glad we're doing this year. I think it's a lot of fun. And the one thing we want to start out with every episode is what news do we have? And just to start us off, we've got the big preseason get together coming up on the 12th. That's this Sunday, 2 p.m. So it's a nice little pre-party before you go off to your Super Bowl party. We're just going to get together at the Londoner, have a few beers, get to know each other, maybe have a little bit of rugby going on in the background, just to pump everybody up and get to know each other a little bit better. We get to the games, we don't get to really, chat and hang out because we're watching the match. It's an opportunity for us to do this outside the stadium.
Also, don't forget on opening night, get to the game an hour and a half early as we will be tailgating the first ever Jakl Den Dallas Jackals tailgate. Lot L, I will be there. Rick will be there. His kids will probably be there. My girl will be there. Drinks, food, getting together, just hanging out, getting amped up for the home opener less than 2 weeks away. I'm pretty dang excited about that one, man.
Hey,
it's gonna be
and
some good
for all
times.
those who don't know what a braai is, you'll get to know what that is, right?
I will show you the art of the bride. This is the only way to cook food in South
I
Africa.
don't know about
Over
that.
fire,
I think a
outdoors.
barbecue is the best way to do it. Ugh.
And barbecue is different though, man. There's subtle differences in it. So we'll
Well,
get
we
into that.
come out and learn what those subtle differences are.
Yes, definitely. What a week. We went from kind of having rosters going through that to like we went from 0 to 100 this week. Started off Friday night. If you weren't there, you missed out on a truly unique experience. The Dallas Jackals have already released some of the footage from that. You saw Rick in the footage. If you paid attention, you would have seen the back of my head and body for about. They did 3 frame shots of me standing in the back, and man, what did I mean? Where to even start? Meeting the new team, meeting the new coaching staff, and then it being capped off with new jerseys, man. What did how did you feel about the whole thing? How did you feel about the jerseys, man?
Uh, I think about the whole thing, this is one of the things I felt like we really lacked last year was this, we had the post-game stuff where we could go up and have a beer and meet some of the players, but really an opportunity to like sit down with the players and chat with them when their families aren't necessarily like, all there and they're not exhausted from a match. And then meeting the coaches and just go up, shake their hand, talk to them a bit. I've heard you might have chatted with a certain somebody for a little while.
Man, Mario Ledesma, man, a
Bro
gentleman
crush.
that I even had to go up to you and you were like, just go talk to him. I had to psych myself up to go up and talk to this guy. Then when I eventually did talk to him, I get a selfie and he wants to sit down and talk to me about, not just, obviously rugby, but also just I guess the cultural differences in America, I guess,
Yeah.
kind of, what it's a different. This is a gentleman that has been playing rugby since he was 4 years old, growing up in a country that's very proud of rugby, and coming to America where, I informed him we have a Tongan community nearby, and he's like, "Why aren't they playing rugby?" And I'm like, "Because they play American football," and he's just like, "Oh, kind of." But just amazing to meet the guy, to talk to him about the culture that's trying to be instilled in the boys here and the mistakes that were made last year and how they're trying to correct so many of them. And we got to kind of see, a bit of that the next day. The jerseys,
I
we got
I
home and
love
away.
I love the away hoops. I'm sad they're going to be the away kit because we won't get to see them as much in person. But we got to see them in person several times last year, and it's a classy look. It's got the collar and everything, so it's a win. It was a win last year. I thought when they first brought those out, I was like, they need to make that the home kit. Like that should be the main kit. And
That was the throwback kit last year, right? That was
yeah,
the
and sure enough, they made it, the main kit this year, at least for away matches. And then the home kit, when we first saw the sneak peek of it, won't say whose Instagram post it was, but it looked like quarters, and we were thinking, they're gonna do quarters. Interesting. But we saw it in person. I thought they looked very sharp. It is that kind of bordering on Harlequin's colors and the Harlequin's quarters, but I think it works. I think it was good choices. It definitely harkens back to the history of rugby. The Harlequins have been around for a long time, and it's not necessarily completely distinctive because NOLA uses the quarters as well. But the teal and black, I think just using teal and black as much as possible is going to be a win.
It pops. It pops definitely. Definitely will be getting one of those away kits. And then I guess the even bigger news on that, kind of the last little note to touch on that, was sponsorship, man.
Wow.
We jumped into a different echelon this year on the
Yeah,
sponsorship.
Matt,
Baylor
sorry,
Scott
Mav
and White.
Q. Sorry, Mav Q, but no, when you got Baylor Scott and White as your main kit sponsor, woo, that's a step up.
It was a shock to me, definitely. And talking to management and saying that, hey, they wanted to go after a big fish. If we want to get big, we got to go after big fish. And they definitely succeeded in the sponsorship on that end. Not what I was expecting. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh wow, like I said, we've moved into a different
We've made
category
it.
as far as sponsorship.
We've made it. There's not concerns about this, I think, long term when you're talking about sponsorships. I mean, really the money, right? You talk about sponsors and you talk about TV money, and TV money will come. It'll take time, but it'll come. But the big, kit and stadium and everything like that, sponsors, you can make do with that. And this year, I mean, to me, that tells me they're here to stay.
Yeah, it's definitely not a flash in the pan. We've met the president of the team, and he's definitely a guy with a background in NHL and Major League Baseball, and he's excited and he wants to see this be successful. And it's good to have that in the organization, people that have kind of that same, you want it to be successful. This is still a growing sport, and you want those big-minded people in the game because they help it grow.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get into preseason friendly match. We would say friendly overseas. They say scrimmage here. I still find it a bit funny that I go onto the Facebook and I see the first video that you're filming, and I realize we were both filming the very same thing, which was that scrum, that very first scrum of this year.
I mean, literally, it was going to tell us whether the work that they've put in, the players that they brought in, are going to make the difference between what we saw last year and what we hope to see this year. And that first scrum was telling of they've made huge strides.
No longer the pushover immediately. We held our ground. We
literally and figuratively.
Yeah, and we even won a few of theirs, where we got really close to winning a few of theirs. And unfortunately, the game started off, it was kind of a bit of the same old story. NOLA scores really early on the right side. Out wide, they get a couple of phases in, and they run it across pretty early, and we're kind of like looking at each other like, okay, like,
oh no, yeah, oh no,
not this again, not this again.
Yeah.
And it took a bit. It took, I'd say, a good probably 10 to 15 minutes. We had a couple of lineouts that we won our lineouts. We were very competitive. It was a big question mark for a lot of us in lock, and we had the starting combo of Charlie Hola and Sam Golick going out there and really holding their own. And Dewey Kutsia really showing a lot of improvement. Obviously, the set pieces were something that we died from last year. That was what killed us more than anything. And getting out early and showing like, hey, we have made improvements. I guess kind of bring this up a bit quick, not too quick, but the fact that this was in fact a scrimmage match. Our most seasoned players were not dressed.
Yeah.
Juan Pablo Zeiss did not dress. Imhoff did not dress. These are both guys that have multiple Pumas caps between them, and they did not dress.
And we haven't gotten Thomas Baravel has not made it over, I guess, from Italy.
Okay.
I didn't know if he was coming from Argentina. I'm assuming Italy, and he hadn't made it over yet. Expected if he isn't here yet, he should be here soon. Before the season starts, he would be the expected starter at hooker. Although, as you said, Dewey looked good. So I think there's some depth there. It hurts that Fring's retired, but I think you still have depth there. And also Geronimo Gomez Vara did not play, and he's expected to be a starter in the back row, which I don't.
How is that going to happen?
I don't know how he's going to have to find somewhere else to play as good as our back row played on Saturday.
So it took a bit for us to get on the board. We did eventually get on the board, probably about the 16th, 17th minute. Yeah. Adrian Carlson, absolutely money with the boot. The video that the Jackals released today had a really good camera shot of that second conversion from out wide from him, and it looked like it was just a walk in the park for him on that kick.
Yeah.
And his kicking was definitely beautiful. We had I'm trying to remember who got that first try. Was that?
It was Tatum.
It was Tatum that got the very first try, kind of a little bit of a turnover.
It was a turnover that he ended up out on the right wing with would have been Naposki, I guess.
Naposki with support.
Yeah.
And they got it in. Jalen Tatum, who played a bit at wing for us last year.
Yeah, he didn't look uncomfortable out there.
Yeah, he has that speed, and at 6'5", he's not going to be a very easy guy to bring down at that height. Next score that we had, a bit of box kicking, something that we kind of expected with the Argentinian
influence
coaching style coming in. A guy that scored pretty well last year at will would be Conrado Aurora, the Argentinian-born guy. He just busts through. You see him shoving people off. There's nothing that's going to stop that guy. That guy gets any momentum, I would not get in front of him because it's going to hurt.
No, I mean, he basically came out and played the way he finished last season. And I think if we went back to last year and we just said, who was the MVP, I think it's got to clearly have been him. He was just everywhere all the time, making plays for that team when things looked bad. It didn't matter. He was out there busting his butt.
Yeah, he had started out at 8 last year, and then when we brought Boyson in, he moved to the flanker, and it was like,
and he's a natural flanker. He was playing flank for the Pumitas before he came up here. So, but also he's a sevens guy. So he's a prop in sevens, and I would not want to be on a team facing him in sevens. I'd be like, wait, that guy plays sevens? No. Hard.
He has earned the nickname El Bigote from me. Anybody that needs to know that is the mustache in Spanish, just because he has that handlebar mustache and always just a smile on his face. Yeah. Like, he is absolutely excited. So those are kind of some of the high points. We can kind of dip into, yes, there were some low points. Obviously, I don't want to go completely off the rails. 45-19, the final score. I'm pretty sure you could find a lot of low points in that.
Yeah.
But I guess the biggest one for both of us, we were getting killed on the breakdown.
Yeah.
We were just not protecting the ball very well. There wasn't a lot of support. Maybe this was communication issues. We did see what we felt like to be a lot of communication issues. I don't know if this is a language barrier thing or.
And it wasn't just at the breakdown. You also just saw it at, just in defensive alignment in general. And And the biggest key to defense in rugby is communication, making sure you've got your guy, the guys, you trust the guys next to you to get theirs. And then when there's switches and stuff, you've got to communicate it. You've got to communicate if you've got pillar. And man, there were so many times where we left holes just kind of all over the field.
And that is reflected in the scoreline, definitely. It just seemed like getting momentum once we got the ball, it came a lot harder for us than it did for New Orleans. When they had the ball, they had momentum all the time. They were moving every time they got the ball, they were moving forward. For us, it would be we'd move forward and then go 5 yards back, or we'd, a knock on or a little bit of handling issues. And I don't, want to really call anybody, but Maroney, who started at fullback for us, he seemed to be a bit unsure under the ball. You saw him a lot of times, the ball would bounce in front of him and he'd step back. Like he wasn't used to the bounce of the ball. Maybe it's the turf that's a little throwing him off a little bit.
But he just has natural grass. So.
Yeah, he didn't seem 100% confident under the ball. Now, later in the game, when we moved Adrian Carlson back to 15, he was 100% comfortable under the ball back there. But that also probably helps that he's been playing here for a year, too. This is his home stadium. He knows how the ball's going to bounce. He knows how the field's going to react.
Well, also in Atlanta, they have the field turf as well. So he's already been familiar with that for several years now, playing on field turf versus Maroney. He's been playing in Houston, which has natural grass. And then he was playing in Argentina, which I'm sure in Argentina they play on natural grass
fields.
So it may just take him a while. Also, everything I've seen on him is that he has filled in at fullback quite a bit, but that he's really naturally an outside center. And so at outside center, you're not getting high balls very often. Let's be honest.
You're not going to be under the ball too much at outside center. But yeah, I mean, like I said, nothing too majorly bad about this.
And the thing we talked about, Keith, was the fact that we both think that the problems that they have currently based on Saturday's action are completely fixable. It's not the same stuff that we saw at the beginning of last season, which we thought where the scrum is literally getting pushed over every play and we're losing every line out, like things that really you can't just fix in a week or two, like communication on defense and alignment, stuff like that. Those are pretty quick fixes. But the problems they had last year, we just knew it was going to be a rough season from the start.
I had gotten there early. I think I might have even been the first one down in the stands, and to get catch a look at warmups, obviously see the guys warming up. And it was for any of you guys that made it out last year to the games, the warmups, ours usually didn't look nearly as good as the other teams. That was the exact opposite on Saturday. We had very, very structured warmups. The coach was on the pitch, running through the warmups with all the players. They're running laps together. And you look to the other side of the field, and it kind of looked like us. It was like, yeah, there's stuff going on, but it's a lot of people just kind of standing around. There was nobody standing around. If you weren't participating in the drill, you were getting ready to participate in it. And like I said, the head coach was out there the whole time during warmups. It was good to see. We saw Hayden Hill, unfortunately, with the boot on his foot, a broken toe for him. But seeing like a guy like Brendan Rams out there kind of setting up, getting pads, getting everybody
even the GM
warm-up.
was out there getting cones and stuff for the team, helping set up. So it's clear that they're all pushing in the same direction.
And that's something, we needed to see big time. We needed to see coaching staff, general manager, everyone on the same page with a common task.
Hey, and a head coach that's not also the GM, I think will help. And giving all props to Elaine, she did a great job with what she had last year, which was not a great setup because of not getting the head coach over. And I would say the previous GM still having some influence. Structurally, it just wasn't great last year. This looks completely different. I'm much more excited about this first game against Houston than I was last year. And look, the first game at home last year was a barn burner. It was an exciting match. And
against Houston.
and Keith, the one thing that we saw out there, I think we both saw this, that we're happy with, is they're still keeping up the free-flowing, fast-playing rugby that we saw last year. That hasn't changed.
Definitely.
So it's gonna still be very exciting rugby. There's gonna be scoring. It's just a matter of, can we get the defense in place, and can we make sure that we're at ruck, sealing them, protecting our own ball. And I think I wish we would have seen a lot more defensive work at the ruck. I think they just, like you said, they killed us at both ends of the ruck.
It was also, for anybody that wasn't there, it wasn't really a typically structured game. We played a full first half, and then they played like a couple of 20-minute halves, and then they played a couple of 25-minute halves just to get all players some time on the pitch. Yeah. And by the time we got to that last 25 minutes, everyone, even New Orleans, they were gassed. Everybody was gone.
I think I even posted on Facebook on one of the videos. I was like, yeah, it looks like both these teams are pretty gassed. I'm not sure they got anything left in the tank at this point.
But it was still a great chance to see where we're going and where we're heading as a team.
The weather was perfect. Can't argue with that.
Yeah, I have to bring up the fact that I go up to Rick towards the end of the game, and he's got a little bit of a white substance on his face, and I'm like, "What is that?" And he's like, "It's sunscreen." I'm like, I don't need any of that. I'm a real tough guy. I walk into the office on Monday morning, and we're like, "Hey, man, you got some sun this weekend." My head was red. My whole face was. So that's what I get for making fun of you for wearing sunscreen out at the game. Exactly. So next game that's during the sun time at sunlight hours,
we're both going to be out there with a nice white crust over the nose.
Yeah, I will definitely be wiping the face down with it, because I did not expect I also, last season, anybody that saw me, I wore hats constantly at games. This year, I have begun, well, you can already see it, I've begun growing a mullet, so I don't wear hats at the games, because I want my mullet to flow in the wind, and just as kind of a sign of solidarity for the few guys that have mullets. I was hoping Dewey would keep his in the off season, but being down in South Africa, it was too hot, so we cut it off. Maybe he'll grow it back this year, but just something kind of different and unique in the stands.
All right, let's jump into our 3 stars of the game, and then our 3 emerging stars of the game.
Yes, sir. Would you like to go first? Would you like me to go first?
Keith, get in with your 3 stars.
My 3 stars of the game, I've gone through and made changes multiple times, but this is going to be my 3 stars, and I will go from 3 to 1. Number 3, I got to go with Jalen Tatum. This was a guy, like I said, he was marked as a wing last year. I know he was a flanker playing in 404, that kind of thing. And that guy, he has got a pair of wheels on him. That kid can move very, very fast, and he's a very, very big guy. So it's going to be hard to bring him down. You usually don't see big men with that kind of speed, and Tatum definitely has it in spades. My second star is going to go to starting fly half and the magic boot for the day, going 2 for 2 on kicking, and then even kicking the touch pretty well and everything, would be Adrian Carlsa, making his return again this season. Went and played 10s all summer, and he was really the bus driver for that back, being kind of the quarterback, kind of running the whole thing. And you saw him making a lot of decisions on the fly, doing his little stutter steps that he's kind of known for, jumping around, being spry with the ball. So I gave him my second star. And my number 1 star of the game, a guy we brought up earlier. I mean, a guy that really has just picked up from where he left off last year, and that's Conrado Aurora. What can you say about the guy? Gets a try off of a box kick, gets the ball, runs it down. I mean, yes, we got murdered on the breakdown, but I don't think that was 100% his fault either. He was a guy that was in the mix the entire game when he was on the pitch. He was always right there. Where the action was happening, he wasn't too far if he wasn't in the middle of it. So that would be my 3 stars of the game. What about you, Mr. Collins?
My 3 stars, I have some similar ones to you, but I'm going to throw in a little bit of a different one. I had Tatum as well. Just because I think the expectation was he's moving from wing to flanker, although he has played at flanker for 404 pathways and up and coming with rugby ATL. He had moved to wing last year and now moving back to flanker. Not sure what we would get out of him. We didn't really get to see a whole lot of out of him last year. And I think obviously at wing, we really struggled to get the ball out to our wings anyway last year. So we didn't get to see it as much of the wings as we would have liked. He was phenomenal. And that first try was awesome. He looked like a wing out there on the edge. And then I just thought he was all over the place. I think the breakdown is the one area that I would have liked to see our flankers a little bit more. But I still think that's kind of in the training for him. And then seeing, when Vara comes in, how that works out. But I thought he played phenomenal for where he's at in his rugby career. Number 2 was Rura for me. Again, like you said, you just can't say anything more about him. And then my number 3 is the other halfback pairing, which was Danny Christensen, who I don't know is our starter this year, although he looked dang good. We also have Pedro Imhoff coming off. I don't know if he's injured or they sat him for this. He's 33, so you don't need to see him in preseason, I don't think. But Christensen looked phenomenal, and a lot of Utah people are upset that he wasn't re-signed up there, and he's a USA kid. I was really impressed with his ability, especially I think we both were sad that Carlo was not returning, and Danny looked the business. So I was pretty happy with his performance.
And then, I feel that if that's our backup, we're fine.
Yeah,
we're
exactly,
fine.
right? Especially compared to last year, where after Carlo, it was like, okay, we got Brusati, like basically a couple of guys who had just come out of college. And so it was a question of whether they could even perform at this level. Although Brusati's been playing for a long time, but even so. And then we have our emerging stars, and my 3 were Gola, who, like you had said earlier, really stood up and had a great match at 5. I think he was 5. Yeah, at 5.
Yeah.
And him and Hola aren't naturally locks. I think both of them are really naturally flankers, but Gola played phenomenal at lock along with Hola. But I really he looks like a professional rugby player. I think that was the key to me, is like, he's ready for this level of rugby. This isn't too much for him. So I thought, as a guy that I'm not sure what I expected we would get out of him, if he's going to play lock, he's going to be fine. If he gets to play flanker or something, he might actually be better. So I think it's great. We're going to get a lot out of him. I think he's going to be a great player for us. We have a lot of great young players, which is really nice to see. And then Tidwell, who I don't think we either expected really anything. His dad's, active on the Facebook group, and I watched video and he looked great in the video, but it's against, college kids at a much lower level than what these MLR, backs are bringing. And man, I mean, his runs were great, but the most impressive piece was his defense. He made every single tackle. And they weren't just, grabbing a guy by the ankles and he was hitting guys and making secure tackles every single time. Really, really impressed with him. And then my third guy was Shoemaker, who I really expected nothing. He came in, put in a lot of good minutes, and a strong ball carrier. He had a couple of knocks, but I thought he played well overall. And excited to see another young guy in the pack, which we desperately need, because we have a lot of young backs. We need a lot of young guys in the pack, because some of these guys don't have that many more, as most especially front rowers and type 5 know. I think your career is considerably shorter with all the contact that you take up there. So we need young guys that can come in and play in those positions. And it's good to see some some young guys coming out of college that can play, they can be tough enough in that tight five to get it done this level.
Definitely. I went with two of the same picks as you. Obviously, Sam Gola. Just the expectation when you're that high of a draft pick is to come in, but this isn't the NFL, this isn't the NHL, this isn't the NBA. You got to come in and cut your teeth in this level. This is his first crack at professional rugby. And when you're lined up against a very veteran USA Eagle, Cam Dolan, and you're not only getting your lineouts, but you're tapping theirs. You're making their lineouts difficult to get. And you've got him and Charlie, who are both very, very. Charlie Hola is only like 23, 24 too. They're both young players, and they got in there. And I mean, it was almost like they didn't care who they were lined up against. They got out there. Gola looked like, I'm not going to say like a seasoned veteran, but he looked like somebody that's definitely ready for this level of rugby. He's ready for this level, and I think we're going to see a lot of excitement out of him. Tidwell, kind of for the same reasons, the tackling, the speed, and kind of once he got in the game and kind of started making a difference, you started seeing adjustments from New Orleans' attack. They really tried to stay away from him as much as possible because they knew he was going to stop them. And I think that speaks leaps and bounds when you're playing against a team where these guys have been together 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And you're a young buck stepping on the pitch. And it's like, okay, we've got to adjust our offense around that guy because he's stopping us. So I think both of these young guys, they have the capability of just having very breakout seasons this year, being their rookie campaigns. And then my last one, I changed this a few times, but I went ahead. We didn't get to see a lot of them last year, mostly just because we just didn't have the ball out wide very often. Yeah. And that is DC's own Aaron Gray. I call him the weapon. He put on a bit of bulk in the summer. He has got speed. You can go find his sevens footage. He's a Kutztown grad. Last year, his first campaign in professional sport, professional rugby. And we just never really had a chance to really see him fly. I mean, we go back to that first game and he takes a forearm to the face. I mean, we just didn't have, and I think this year with what is being done to our forward pack, our wings are going to have that space to fly. And I think this could be, no disrespect to Eric Naposki. We know what you can do. Yeah. But I think we're going to see what Aaron Gray can do this year too. Yeah. His mama, we brought it up in the podcast, that he's got like the greatest support network around him. And he is, even sitting down with him Friday night, hey, what soda are you drinking? I don't drink soda. I watch my diet. He is an athlete. He is a professional athlete. And I think that this season we are going to get to see a lot more of the Aaron Gray show. We're going to get to see what that young man is capable of. A little bit undersized, yes. He wears the scrum cap like the great Cheslin Colby. And I just think this is going to be a year where he has the opportunity to really have a breakout year.
Yeah, and like you said, Eric Naposki, I think, if he does what he did last year, we're going to be like, yeah, he's a stud wing. I mean, he's a number 1 overall pick. There's a reason. But Aaron Gray, I think you're right. I think we're going to see a lot more from him this year than we did last year.
So it makes me optimistic that we have a lot of young talent on this club, but then we also have a lot of veteran talent that we didn't get a chance to see this last weekend. And I'm thinking if, these things click, we could be in for a wild ride here. The competition is even stiffer this year than it was last year. The games are going to be tighter. The rivalries are going to be bigger, especially with us just being a 2-team state. Once again, with the I-45 rivalry starting against Houston. Houston got better. We got better. Everyone got better. But I think that this year, it's not going to be a repeat of last year. So with that being said, once again, tickets still remain. We've got the home opener less than 2 weeks away. And obviously this coming Sunday, Londoner Pub, Addison, Texas. Come on out, hang out, get some play. We're going to have some of the players come out, hang out with us, have a few drinks, have some food, and just have a good time. I cannot wait to be out at the pitch again in less than 2 weeks. Hope to see So many people there. It'll be so great. Come out and hang out with us. Even if you don't have anything to cook, come and hang out. There'll be plenty to eat.